Hello and welcome to another episode of the Crimson Podcast. I'm your host, Ben Balian, alongside Jack Martin, and today we have the Republican candidates for the Burnsville Borough Council, Szrom and Traynor. How's it going, guys?
Good. Going great. Thanks so much for having us. Thanks for doing this. It's really cool to see you all stepping up and doing this so early in your career.
Yeah.
It's a great opportunity for the town, too. You know,
it's the first time I've been in the hallways of Bernard's High when you guys are during class, so it's pretty cool.
All right, let's get right into it. So what do voters need to know? Give your spiel just to start us off.
Sure. I'm Rich Traynor. I'm actually currently on the council. I got appointed in January when one of the former council members had to step down. He was a little too busy at work, so I got appointed in January. I've been on the council for about 9 or 10 months now. So I've got a little bit of a taste of what it entails. One of the reasons that I decided to run for council is that I had been on the Board of Adjustment for about 13 years. So I was involved in the town, involved in development applications that were coming through town. And I ultimately felt that I could do a lot more on the council than I was doing on the Board of Adjustment. So there are definitely some important issues facing the town. Development of downtown is a big one. Affordable housing is another really big issue that I think is really going to be probably one of the main issues the town's facing over the next few years. But there's plenty of other issues. Charlie can talk about a number of things around taxes and open space and parking and traffic. So sort of the list of issues goes on. And I think our position is we just want to take a real common sense approach to solving these issues. We're a small town. There's not a lot of differences between Democrats and Republicans when you get to this local level. It's really about just bringing common sense and hard work, and I think that's what we're about.
Yeah, and thanks again for the time. So, Charlie, Szrom, we've been in town about 3 years, and when we first moved to town, my mother-in-law grew up in town, so we've been around town for a while, but we've been here full-time for 3 years. When we first moved here, there was a lot of excitement about the downtown, the whole Quimby plan. And so when some folks asked me to consider doing this earlier this year, I said, wait, we've been here about 3.5 years. Property taxes bills just came out in the spring. I said, Quimby hasn't really moved along. Our property taxes keep going up. What are we doing to make sure that citizens, starting with myself and my family and my neighbors, are getting more for their dollar, getting more a better downtown, and getting better use of their taxpayer dollars. So that's what really kind of the two precipitating events that caused me to think about this. So most of my career, I've been in large companies, most recently as a neighboring telecommunications firm as the Senior Director of Corporate Development, Mergers and Acquisitions, long career in finance. Spent a lot of time in my career going through the numbers, but also bringing people together to make a case for that's the real beauty of finance, right? It's not just adding things up in an Excel spreadsheet. It's getting everyone's inputs, weighing one thing here that affects another thing in another part to get the best answer. And I thought I could bring some people together to get a plan that both works for the downtown, works for citizens, while also relieve some of the burden that we all feel in this era of higher inflation. We just had more CPI inflation numbers this morning. So, just a good way, I think, of bringing my career in to help folks around town. And starting with, as Rich said, the development. How do we make that better? How do we make sure that we aren't sacrificing the charm that all drew us all here, which is a beautiful small town, while upgrading some of the buildings so that they're of the quality that is the same quality as our community. We have a great community. Our physical infrastructure lags a bit, but not going so far to put a ton of units downtown. Yeah. And there are a couple other things on finances where I think we've called for using a lot of technology. You all are probably studying a lot of this in your classes. Not just software, automation, so how we can improve the processing that we do in town. And also on just keeping our town safe and fun. We have a great rec department, great events. How do we do more of that? How do we open up more spaces? We've talked a lot about Meadowbrook Farm, talked for several months now about how we make a firm offer to acquire the development rights to that property. Massive opportunity for our town to secure a foundational asset. So, and finally comes to safety. There's always instances where you just have to keep town safe and keep it fun for everyone. So those are kind of our big issues.
And I would add, Charlie has spoken about this on our Facebook page about really encouraging people to volunteer and get involved in the town, because a lot of people go on, for example, the bubble, the Facebook page, and it's a little frustrating to me because it really becomes a venue for people to kind of complain and gripe. And I always think to myself, use the pool as an example. So the town pool, definitely room for improvement there. And a lot of people complain about it. And and what I've been doing is to try and encouraging people who really care about the pool. Let's say that's your issue. Well, get involved and step up. There's always opportunities for people to get involved in the rec committee, to bring ideas about how we can increase membership at the pool, how we can make it more fun, how we can, improve the services there and the food offerings there. So there's a lot of things. So, you really can't just leave it to council to sort of solve all these issues. I mean, we're ultimately there to make kind of final decisions, but we're always looking for input from, the rest of the town. Whether your passion is, development issues, you can get involved in the Board of Adjustment or the Planning Board. If it's recreational issues, you can get on the rec committee. If it's environmental issues, we've got an environmental committee. And so a lot of people who are passionate about issues in town, and that really helps the council. And we really pay attention to those committees. And that's where we get sort of the feedback firsthand from people who care about those issues.
Yeah, I mean, I spent the last few years on the board of the Summers Hills Ball Club. I think maybe some of you guys played it when you were younger, or your friends did too. It's always, we've had a great surge of interest in that, and we always need more coaches. So part of my idea around this volunteer fair was, also for civic committees, but also nonprofits around town. We are a great community because we have such a closely knit and yet also very welcoming community. We need more people to step in, step up. It's great the bubble is a great source of information, but we need folks to go beyond that to jump in and help with all these various events, service opportunities all around town.
Yep.
So I kind of want to get into your priorities because I was looking at your website. You had a few priorities of what you want to accomplish. So I want to start with the parking. What was your kind of vision on that, and how do you plan to implement those changes?
Sure. So parking is, I think a lot of people perceive that there's a parking issue in town. I think we actually have a fair amount of parking in town. It's just maybe not in the most convenient layout or the most convenient locations. So I've been really making it a point to pay attention and sort of come downtown at certain times of day. So for example, at night, on a Thursday night when the restaurants are busy, and see, okay, where, do we have a parking problem? Where is the parking? Where is it full? Where is it empty? And so I think there's a lot of things, again, going back to sort of common sense and simple solutions. We can look for things like, how do we reconfigure some of the parking in the train station or the library to squeeze in some more spaces there, or make it a little bit more friendly? How do we improve the signage so people know where to find additional parking spaces? I mean, I've been in town for almost 20 years, and I always assumed that the post office parking lot was sort of reserved for the post office, and it's actually a public parking lot. And there's lots of spaces there until you get sometimes at night with the parking, and the restaurant across the street tends to take a lot of those. So one is making sure that all of the businesses in town actually have sufficient parking, what they're required to do from a site plan requirement, and then really just looking for what are ways, simple, inexpensive ways to get more people to get convenient parking downtown.
Also, Adam, parking, beyond the optimization of the near-term inventory, as we look at doing things with Quimby, which we think should continue, which is Quimby, for everyone who's listening, is the part in between Quimby Lane and
Mill Street.
and Anderson Hill and
Mill Street.
and Mill Street and 202. So that sort of block there. We think that should continue. We think it should be probably a slightly scaled down or somewhat scaled down version from the original conception. Smaller but faster, leaner. And one component of that we feel is really important is getting parking as part of that. So we need to get more parking from any new Quimby Lane development. Part of that will involve the developers building some units, but again, much smaller than the original version, especially since we have other developments coming into town. And that will help add to the inventory over town. We've talked to several businesses around town over the last few weeks, and parking is an issue as folks, don't often have enough spaces to bring new customers to their lot, to their business, especially the businesses where you pop in for a little bit. You need more of that parking available.
Yeah. And what sort of a tangential issue that I think was definitely my priority, one of the reasons I threw my hat in to get appointed to the council is traffic as well, because the downtown traffic on in the center of town, I live on Ambar Place, and so I'm constantly going on Mount Airy Road, trying to get into the center of town around, in the mornings and the afternoons, especially when the high school and the schools get out and there's a lot of kids crossing the street there. It was getting really, really bad on Mount Airy. It was going all the way back way past my street. And one of the things that we've already been able to accomplish is to get the DOT, which controls the light at that intersection, to change the timing on that light. And it seems like such an easy, simple solution, but because you're dealing with state government, it's not always easy to get their attention. We were able to go to our state senator, talk to him about the issue. He called the DOT. The DOT called me back. And I'm actually going to be on the call with him later today to continue to tweak the timing on that light. It's not going to be a cure-all. It's not going to be solve all the problems there. But I've already noticed a huge improvement just in terms of getting that timing, a little bit more optimized. So things like that. I mean, that's an example of, okay, we don't have to reinvent the wheel. We don't have to spend tons of money. What are some easy, simple solutions to make life a little bit easier for people?
Yeah, and staying on the topic of that intersection, how are the apartments that are going up the Palmer project? How are those apartments, that parking lot, those cars that are going to be pulling out of that lot going to affect the traffic in that intersection?
Yeah, it's a good question. So it's I think it's 66, 67 units that are going to be added there. So a couple things that are going to happen there. One is there's going to be no ingress or egress on Mount Airy Road, except I believe for delivery trucks. So you're already going to be eliminating that sort of driveway that comes out right at the end of Mount Airy, which was always helped tie things up a little bit. So the main entrance is going to be further down Route 202. So I think that's going to be a little bit better in terms of getting in and out of that property. And then in terms of will you notice the issue? I'm not a traffic engineer, but I've read the traffic report, and there are literally thousands and thousands of cars that go on 202 in Mount Airy every day. So adding, approximately, 150, 200 trips a day, it's not going to help the issue, but I don't think you're going to see a massive difference. I mean, you're talking about an increase of 2% or something like that a day.
Yeah, I mean, obviously that intersection is kind of plagued with traffic. I go through there every day on my daily commute. As Rich mentioned, we've made some optimizations short term, which we continue to tweak with our direct line to Trenton. Longer term, we got to get creative. I think, the newspaper said we call for creative solutions, and that's what we're creative, common sense, modern solutions. And how do we think about optimizing that intersection, making it even better over the long run? And we're open to all ideas. There's lots of different ideas. Lots of other towns have adopted ways to fix problematic intersections, which that has been. And let me just say on Palmer, since you brought it up, I wasn't on the council. Rich wasn't on the council back then. My personal view, attending the settlement hearing in the summer, is it should be smaller. I think the developer could have made a reasonable rate of return at a smaller building while still giving us more space. Ideally, a turning lane on Mount Airy would have been nice. I think it'll be a beautiful building, but I think it should have been smaller.
So I kind of want to get into the taxpayer dollars, because you mentioned how you have background in finance. And a part I found really interesting, it says by limiting the municipal property taxes, how are you able to do that?
So we actually did a video on this week. So there's a lot of technology that other towns have been using called citizen request management software. It's like CRM. It's like CRM software. Sorry, I'm talking to these guys. It's like CRM, customer relationship management software, where it lets you track requests. And one value of using software like that is one thing I hear often about while knocking on doors is people have an issue with their particular street. So let us track those requests, prioritize when we get to certain streets, certain paving, taking down a tree, things like that nature. But what that also does is give us a data layer, a database, so we can say, okay, we've used this many resources on this street, this amount of equipment. It gives us utilization rates, things like that a business would use. So then we can say, okay, we then need to purchase this equipment less, or we need to purchase this piece of equipment 2 years ahead of time, so that when we sell it, we aren't selling it for pennies on the dollar. We're selling it for 50 cents on the dollar when you do the resale. It's because those are the big expenses on the capital side or equipment, and the rest of the budget is largely personnel. So how do we help people do more? And these days, you all have seen it. The best way to do that is with automation, versions of artificial intelligence. Not that we reduce the staff, but we let the staff do even more with what they have, so that we can service a town that does continue to grow slightly without adding more headcount expense.
Yeah, there's only two things you can do from a tax standpoint to keep people's taxes either growing slower or hopefully going down. And by the way, this is kind of a I don't know, sure everybody knows this, but when you pay your property tax bill every year, the big chunk of that goes to the school system. It's about 50%, maybe a little bit more than 50%. It's almost 60% of the bill. A little bit goes to the county, and about 25 or so percent goes to the municipality. There's two ways you can help with that. One is to bring in more taxes, and that's encouraging commercial development, because that's a way to kind of get more tax revenue without putting more onus on the school system. And then the other way is, what Charlie was talking about, is sort of keeping your spending down. There's not a ton of wiggle room there because the vast majority of the municipal budget is people. It's the employees in town and paying their health care. And that's so I agree with Charlie in terms of, you don't want to reduce the number of people in town, but you do want to have them do more give them more tools, give them more opportunities to service the town better without growing the head count.
Yeah, and then transitioning to one of your other issues before we wrap up this episode, keeping Burnsville safe and fun. So one of the things under that section was upgrades to both polo grounds and the pool. What could those upgrades entail?
Yeah, I think we were probably definitely among the top 10% of families at the pool this summer. So any deficiencies at the pool we would have noticed. We love the pool. My wife grew up going to that pool. It's a special place, and we love how it's not going to be like other towns' pools. You want to keep that small, nice environment, especially for little kids. But look, this summer there were issues with plumbing. There were clearly infrastructure issues that could be addressed. There's some chairs and things like that need to be enhanced, and we need to figure out the food situation longer term because we had a great vendor this summer. Not sure whether that's going to continue. We just need to have a better infrastructure over the long term and think about a real capital plan that makes it a real attractive place for folks to go. So dealing with the plumbing, dealing with where you're sitting, dealing with food infrastructure there would be key priorities.
And I would say with the polo grounds, the number one thing is I don't know if you've heard about this idea of a pavilion going in. So right now, if you go to the polo grounds, there's like a little concession stand on the other side of the turf field. Doesn't have plumbing. It's pretty rudimentary. So there are plans, and it's continuing. It's taken a little while, but eventually we're going to get a pavilion, kind of on the parking lot side of the turf fields, which is going to have restrooms. It's going to have a men's room, a ladies' room, a family room. It's going to have a snack bar. So you're going to get all that kind of stuff and more in a much better location. And one of the things I've been trying to do is reach out to the folks who use those facilities a lot, whether it be the football club or the lacrosse team, boosters, and find out what they need. So, whether it's putting up another equipment shed in a better location so they can kind of get the football equipment in and out easier, or getting them some sort of electric cart to help them move the equipment. It goes back to sort of getting the people who are involved and who are using those facilities a lot, getting their feedback and getting, kind of ideas from them because they know better than anybody else, like what can we do to improve this area?
If we are on safe and fun still, I just got to make another plug for Meadowbrook. I'm sure you guys have seen it driving through town. I mean,
it's the farm.
It's like the key piece when you go to Far Hills. It's like welcomes us. And the family's currently going through a subdivision or potential subdivision process. We have to make an offer to them soon to secure this asset. We can create a walking trail there, which could extend through an eventual park in the Quimby area, up to polo grounds, through sidewalks. It would be a magnificent asset for this community, a mini sort of version of Natterar. Not quite the same because you preserve the farm, but you get a walking trail, which would be great for a town, get a bike, run spot. So that is a key priority. We have funds available in open space to do it. We should do that very quickly in combination with our other partners at the county, state, and nonprofit levels.
So I kind of want to get into your backgrounds because you talked about your finance background, but you also have a law and attorney background with real estate.
Yep.
And then you talked about serving on the council since January. What has that experience kind of taught you, and what skills do you bring to the job?
Yeah, so I'm an attorney, and I was a land use attorney, which means that I dealt with a lot of issues that the town faces in terms of development, in terms of affordable housing, those types of issues. So I kind of understand it at a very fundamental, very kind of deep level, kind of what you can do and what you can't do. Plus, I was on the Board of Adjustment, which is the kind of the governing body that deals with all variances essentially in town, and it's kind of a short answer. So I've got that kind of background. I would say since I joined the council in January, it's pretty amazing, like the number of issues that come into play when you're not sort of there and going to council meetings on a kind of daily basis. Charlie's been great. He's been going to a ton of our council meetings this year just to get an idea of like how much stuff we deal with. And it's been an eye-opening experience, but I've been really pleased to see that. I don't know if you guys know. So currently the council is made up of 6 people plus a mayor. And the 6 council members are the ones who kind of vote on everything, and then the mayor kind of breaks if there's a tie. There's 2 Democrats and there's 4 Republicans. And I would kind of dare anybody to go to a council meeting and try and identify, if they didn't know, who the Democrats are and who the Republicans are, because, everybody works together well. We all are there for our volunteers. We're trying to do what's best for the town. So it makes me really proud to be part of a committee like that is, really there to serve the town, and that gets along really well. There's not a lot of sniping or, kind of back and forth. So that's been sort of my takeaway from being on the council.
Yeah, in terms of my background, spent most of my career in finance and technology. I was on an asset manager on Wall Street for 5 years or so, and then on local, as I mentioned, corporate and telecom for 6-7 years, and now run my own business. And all that comes to where I think that's helpful is obviously it's immediately applicable to the finance, looking at a budget, comparing. But I think when you're putting together a business case, whether you're at a large company or whether you're making a pitch for investment at an asset management firm, going to your investment committee, it all ties to getting everyone's interest and saying, okay, this person has that question, this person has that question, this person has that concern. How do we make that all fit into a project that we can execute on a reasonable time frame? And that's what we need to do here in town. We're executing a massive project, making this town even better, making this community even better. And then we have, some mid-sized, some large projects like Quimby, like the other development and projects and Meadowbrook, things like that, where we need to say, hey, here's the objective. How do we fit everyone's interests into that? Talking to everyone. You're not going to make 100% of the people happy, but I think with a lot of these things, we're going to make 80-90% of the people happy and get that in a reasonable time frame where we can execute and get deliverables to this town so people know that they're getting return on their taxpayer dollars.
All right, and then as we wrap up this episode, last thing, just a quick minute or two. Why should voters vote for you? Something to leave the voters with.
Rich, you want to start?
Sure. Well, before I forget, I got to embarrass my daughter. She's a senior. So, hi, Lorelai. Why should they vote for me? I mean, look, I love the town. I've got the time to do it, and I've got the background to do it. And really, for me, it's just about kind of civic duty. I'm not nobody who is on the council is getting anything out of it. It is a time-consuming effort, and the only reason people do it is because they care about the town and they want to do what's best for the town. They want to see the town get better, and that's what I want to do.
Look, our family's been around this town for a long time through my wife's family. We've loved what Burnsville is. There are not many towns across this country where you have a really compact downtown, an amazingly both welcoming, yes, also tightly knit community. That's really hard to find. And you run around town, you run to everyone, it's wonderful. I want to retain that community. I think it's something special that we're doing here in Burnsville, but it's special beyond what we're doing in this town. It's special for the rest of this country. Why me? I spent my whole career bringing people together on controversial, complex issues. My North Star is delivering for that community and getting us the resources to do that. And all the stuff I've done locally, be it in the nonprofit and other volunteer efforts, it just really imbued upon me the value of this community. We need to work hard to do it. We need to bring people together. There's been a lot of controversies over the last couple of years. I'd like to think I'm someone who can bring a couple of those different sides together and get us a real result that works for us.
All right, and that'll just about wrap up another episode of the Crimson Podcast. Another thank you to Charlie Szrom and Rich Traynor for joining us today. On behalf of the rest of the Crimson staff, that's Jack Martin. I'm Ben Balian. We'll talk to you soon.
Thanks, guys.